Hey everyone and welcome to another video guys, and today I'm going to be talking about 10 CS per minute. Now, over the past few months, I've seen a lot of hogwash, nonsense, bullshit content revolving around, you should be getting this amount of CS in this matchup, these players get 10 CS per minute, so you should be doing it. All this stuff that really sets toxic, unrealistic expectations and damages a lot of players' view of the game, even from a very low rank. And I think that I need to clarify a few things for the sake of the community, because this has been really bugging me. So I'm going to cover a wide variety of topics today, revolving around farming, CSing, different CS scores, getting very into the details, getting very specific. Because I cover a wide variety of topics, you can skip forward to what you really want to, what really might apply to you. But I am going to start from the theory, from the beginning, actually. So what we need to know, guys, is that League, as we all know, League is a very complex game, and game to game there's a lot of variables that change based off the amount of the type of champions in the game, the amount of game pace, the rank we're at, the server we're in, players' decisions, so on and so forth. Therefore, we cannot and we should not aim for a specific CS amount in a given game without considering the matchup and the game specifics. We can only ever know in hindsight, in the review, what an optimal CS score would be. I can't go into a game thinking, okay, I'm going to aim for 8 CS per minute this game. I'm going to make sure that I get X amount of CS. It's impossible, and it's actually toxic that you feel that way. If this is something you have heading into a game, it's really not good. This is actually why I cannot stand those Porofessa things where it says, this is your CS comparatively to what this player does in this matchup. No, you're in a different game. There's different variables. Maybe there was a level 1 invade. Maybe the jungle you're versing is Xin Zhao and they come and gank you level 2 and zoned you off the wave. Maybe this guy took a differing rune setup. Whatever it is, it's nonsense. It needs to be very specific. Every single creep that you get should be in the context of the situation and the matchup you are within. So there will be some games where getting 10 CS per minute is amazing. It's optimal. That's what the best player would do. And then there's other games where getting 10 CS per minute is literally game losing. Like, I'm not even exaggerating here. If you get 10 CS per minute, sometimes it can literally be suboptimal. Okay. Now, I also truly believe if you're getting 10 CS per minute below Diamond 4, you are likely playing the game suboptimally, because the game is inherently chaotic and you can't afford to just play that slow in these games that people are just grouping and team fighting. This also ties into my theory about stats only ever being used as a compass. Now, I don't have a problem with stat sites, OPGG, Mobalytics, things like that. But for me, the way I interpret them, because I get asked this question quite often, stats and CS scores and things like that, they're only just a compass. If your CS scores are significantly lower than the average person, or they're significantly higher, now I use that just as a sign, as a magnet telling me, okay, this is something that I need to address. Maybe I need to go into a little bit more detail here and explore what might be going wrong here. That's basically the way I approach any stat in League, because the game, the game changes so much, so we can't just look at a stat and be like, okay, now this is a big problem, I gotta fix it, now I know exactly what to do. No, it's just a compass. So let's go a little bit deeper, guys. I want to start by talking about what it actually takes to get 10 CS per minute. So what we're going to do is identify what we need to do to get this CS score, and then I'm going to talk about the variables, and then I'm going to show an example explaining these concepts, okay? The first one is getting good quality resets, whether maybe you've slow built to wave in and then got a good tempo reset, or maybe you have TP, so you shoved, and then TP back so you don't really miss any CS. The second one is missing very minimal CS. This is something that not many people understand. They think that it's very easy not to just not miss CS. And we're going to go very deep on this, because there's a lot of concepts that you need to understand when it comes to not missing CS. But specifically, only around a wave's worth of CS can be missed if you want 10 CS per minute by the 10-minute mark. That is something we need to consider. And third one here is not attending fights and roam plays before you have shoved out the lane, unless you get either access to that lane CS, or you can get back to your lane before the wave actually crashes, which is something that we do need to consider. And remember, there's a very big difference between having 10 CS per minute at the 15-minute mark versus finishing the game with 10 CS per minute. And we're going to talk about this later on as well. And note, jungle camps aren't necessary until mid to late game, and they are only used to compensate for the lack of access to waves later on within the game. So let's actually look at an example so we can actually break down the fundamentals of getting 10 CS per minute. So what we're going to do here is break down the overarching basic principles when it comes to achieving 10 CS per minute. And this was a game I played somewhat recently. It was an Oriana versus Nico game. And across the next 4 minutes, I break down each and every concept. Now, later on in the video, you're going to come back to this specific example and you're going to see the things that I mentioned throughout the video with more minute detail. Now we're just kind of starting at the top with the base fundamentals, and then we'll get a little bit more detailed each and every slide that we go through. So the first one here is that you want to plan out your resets. Here, at this point in time, I have the wave on my side, so I know I can begin a slow build. And I know I really need to start thinking about getting a good quality reset here because I have no more corrupting pot stacks left. So already way in advance here, I'm already thinking to myself, Curtis, okay, how am I going to get a good quality reset? One of the best ways to get a very good quality reset is to start slow building a wave way in advance, duck off to one side, come back and TP. Then the wave is going to bounce back out to me. So here, I've already thought about this way in advance. I don't get to this situation and be like, maybe I should reset. No. And the sign is here is that I don't have any corrupting pot stacks left and I have gold that I want to spend. I want to go back and get an early tier. And a lot of people don't plan out their resets. They don't think far enough in advance. And because of this, I slow build the wave in. Nico now has to react to this wave here. And now look what happens comparatively. I get my tier. I get my pink. Now I instantly TP back. Now look at this. Step number 2 is about to begin. Create favorable wave states. Because I've got this very good quality reset without missing any CS, in terms of being in lane and able to get each and every bit of CS. Now I know the wave is going to be in a very good position because I've bounced the wave off the tower and it's going to be coming back to me. And this Nico has yet to reset. So all I got to do is hold and chill and relax. Now I've created a favorable wave state that is good for my champion and my matchup. This Nico hasn't reset yet and the wave is still pushing to me. This Nico's screwed and she has Ignite. There's nothing she can do. Now I just create and hold my favorable wave state. Now this favorable wave state is going to differ matchup to matchup. It's going to differ champion to champion. But at the end of the day, the same premise exists. Getting a good quality reset and creating whatever wave state that is good for your champion. Now, the next one, don't take bad roam. So I've done the first step, good resets, create favorable wave states. Nico ended up walking bot because she's desperate. You know, she's getting dumpstered in the 1v1, so she has to make a play here. She sees a potential dive opportunity bot. I know I can't compensate for bot because their entire team's bot side. My jungler made a failed play top side. There's nothing I can do. So instead of compensating, trying to go for some weird little roam top side when I know my jungler is resetting, my top lane is dead, whatever, you know, I can't do anything, so it's okay. So I value my farm in this situation, which leads to the next step going back here. Take good resets round 2. This is a good reset because, you know, there's no more minions to kill here. I've crashed the wave and it's going to become bouncing back out to me. Pretty straightforward stuff here. Nothing too special going on. But again, notice there's a cycle happening here. I take good trades, which leads to thinking about my resets. Thinking about my resets leads to a favorable wave state, and then favorable wave state leads to good trades. It's like a never-ending circle. Trades leads to good resets, leads to good favorable wave situations, leads to good trades. It's a never-ending circle again and again and again. And now again, look, favorable wave state. Hold the wave on my side again. Zone Nico, walk past the wave, take very good trades, rinse, repeat, again and again and again. Now we'll see what the next step is, the final piece of the puzzle. After creating, you know, having good resets, creating favorable wave states, not compensating, it eventually leads to favorable situations where I've taken great trades again and again and again. Now I'm 2 levels up on this Nico, level 7 to level 9. And because I've taken this, you know, such good trades again and again and again, I build the wave in. I was a little wave actually, and we end up diving the Nico, fast forwarding, getting this next wave in with my jungler. Because I've had so much pressure, my jungler was able to have access to the Rift Herald. Boom, get 3 plates with my jungler, get the tower in, shove the next wave, and now look at that. 119 CS by 12 minutes, basically 10 CS per minute. I've missed a few CS here and there, but the fundamentals are all the same, guys. So this is like the more basic bread and butter concepts that we need to understand when it comes to 10 CS per minute. So what we're going to do now is go that next layer deeper. Now, when it comes to not missing CS, it looks very easy on the surface. You know, you go onto Twitch, you watch some pro player, or you download their replays, you go onto YouTube, search your replays, whatever it is. It seems so easy. They make it look very easy, but there are many things at play that dictate one's ability to have access to an entire wave. The first one is the location of the enemy wave, like I demonstrated in the previous example, where I had the wave on my side, I was zoning the Nico, and she didn't really have access to the entire wave, whereas I did. But there was a reason for that, right? We're going to get into that in a second. The access to resources, both mana and HP. I'm not going to be able to walk up and auto-attack the entire wave if I'm low and I have no corrupting pots left or I have no mana. I'm not going to be able to walk up to the CS and do whatever I want with the wave if I have no access to river vision, or maybe the jungler swept the vision, or maybe I've got threat coming from the enemy jungler and support. If I'm an immobile mage like an Orianna and I'm versing a Nocturne post 6 and I'm versing a Pike support or a Bard, and I have no vision in the river or no vision on the Raptors, well, how am I going to fix a ruined wave state? How am I going to walk up and crash the wave? How am I going to, zone the enemy? I'm not going to be able to do any of that. It really depends on what the jungler and the support and what's happening with the vision. Therefore, if we are to get 10 CS per minute, we would have to do the following. Number one, have complete control over the lane, or know exactly how to play out the waves in the matchup, which is directly tied to optimizing trades, range assessment, and runes and builds. 2, know how to ration out our resources to ensure that we get good quality resets, or know exactly how we should be using TP. And 3, know how the junglers are going to interact in the early game, both via pathing and overall strength and threat. Therefore, we should only be able to get 10 CS per minute in matchups where we have complete control over the lane. And people don't understand this. So what I'm going to talk about now is what situations can we actually get 10 CS per minute. Because unless, of course, the enemy keeps mindlessly shoving into you, right? Even if you get counterpicked or whatever it is, if they just keep shoving into you again and again and again, and they're not going to pull the wave, bounce the wave, and do what I did in the VOD, then of course you're going to be able to get 10 CS per minute. Anyone can get 10 CS per minute in those situations. But as you climb, through high plateau onwards, and people start bouncing waves, holding waves, freezing, so on and so forth, it's not really going to be replicable. So notice, one little thing before we get into this, guys. Notice how I'm using the word can, not should. Okay, in what situations can we get 10 CS per minute? Just because we can doesn't mean we should. That's a very important distinction to make. So we can have complete control over the lane in a few individual ways. 1, having counterpick in the draft alongside having favorable jungle matchups. If I'm last and maybe I'm red side, I get last pick, I get counterpick, I see all the compositions, whatever it is, likely I'm going to have a lot more control over the lane because I can optimize my pick, not just for the mid lane matchup, as well as the jungle matchup. Or maybe, I counterpick and my jungle counterpicks their jungler. That happens sometimes in the draft phase. This is one reason why we might have complete control over the lane. The next one is understanding the matchup much better than the opponent. This happens a lot of the time when people try to learn a new champion or they don't have much champion mastery. We see this especially within Platinum, where Platinum is the rank, I believe, matchup understanding really comes into play. And if you understand the matchup very well, it doesn't matter if you get counterpicked because you know how to take good trades, you know how to play the waves, etc., etc. 3, out-microing an opponent, which is what players like Chovy and Showmaker are so great at doing. When you watch a Chovy or Showmaker VOD, when they get 10 CS per minute, a lot of the time, they are largely just out-microing. And when they out-micro, they land their skill shot, and the enemy doesn't land their skill shot, which means eventually, over time, they get a lot of control over the lane. And when you get a lot of control over the lane, you're exerting a lot of pressure, you get good quality wards, you see where the enemy jungler is, and you have full control over what is happening with the wave, which guarantees good reset opportunities. It's a flow-on effect. If you have good micro, you can compensate largely for poor matchup understanding and not getting counterpick in the draft, so on and so forth. Or 4, being in a skill matchup where your jungler or side laners are exerting an immense amount of pressure on the enemy, which gives you control and space over the lane. So for example, if I'm playing Kiana mid, and I have maybe an Evelynn jungle who's post 6, even if I maybe can't win the matchup in the 1v1 and whatever it is, as long as my Eve is out of vision, I have a pink ward, I'm controlling one side, a lot of the time, that threat that is coming from my jungler is going to allow me to control the wave state and do whatever I want over the lane. I'll be able to shove and move if I want to. I can take whatever trade. I can create whatever wave state I want because the jungler is allowing me or creating that space for me. And yes, of course, there are exceptions like Ryze who can still get 10 CS per minute in hard matchups, but at the end of the day, this is just an exception. It's an exception to the rule. Ryze is one of those weird champions where he has so much wave clear that he can just tempo reset whenever he wants. So what we're going to talk about now are the benefits of sacrificing CS. So when you're in a review, guys, you need to ask yourself, what were the trade-offs of playing the way that you did? If you sat there and farmed 10 CS per minute, and instead of roaming or doing whatever it is, you need to ask yourself, what else could I have done instead of sitting in the lane like this? So here are a series of questions that I urge you to experiment with in your own review. The first one, could I have hard shoved at the expense of 2 or 3 creeps to ensure that I have priority for that invade that my jungler is committing to? Another example of this would be, okay, instead of holding the wave on my side, which is better for my isolated 1v1, maybe I actually could have held it in neutral state and actually shoved into the enemy so I can ensure that I'm there for that scuttle fight. Could I have ditched this wave, left it frozen on their side, just to ensure that I'm there to attend that dive? Could I have played that matchup in a more chaotic fashion in order to push the pace of the lane and bring about more 2v2 skirmishes? Could I have grouped for that dragon fight instead of catching that extra top wave? This is very, very important in gold because I see people obsessing around mid-game macro and like split pushing and doing all this bullshit in gold, when at the end of the day, gold is a story of being as strong as you possibly can within the laning phase, getting to that 13 to 15 minute mark and grouping on that dragon and just being stronger than your counterpart. If you're stronger than your counterpart when it comes to that 15 minute ARAM in gold, you will climb out of gold. I guarantee you. It's nothing about split pushing. I don't give a shit what any other coach says. Whatever you've seen on YouTube, it's just not the case. I've done a ridiculous amount of gold VODs. I've done hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of gold reviews. Split pushing does not work. Please do not waste your time with this. With each of these questions, it can be very difficult to answer. I understand this. This is why it's very important to hypothesize and test both strategies. So if you're unsure, right, maybe one game you decide to play very greedily instead on this champion in this specific situation, and you just hold the wave on your side and give pressure to the enemy just so you can deny CS or ensure that you can farm really well. Whereas in the other game, you're like, okay, interesting. I'm going to exert a little bit more pressure here rather than playing this conservative approach because I want to see if snowballing that lane does anything. You must find the balance and find your own interpretation of how to win the game with your champion in that game. Okay, there is no like one formula. There's this book that tells you, okay, in this situation, in here, you got to do this. It's mathematically best to hold the wave on your side and do it. No. There's no yes optimal answer in that moment, because you can interpret the game can be won many different ways. And I had this conversation on my podcast, on the Broken by Concept podcast. I was saying how I don't like saying a game is perfect. Like I played this perfect game. It's very hard to say that, especially as a mid laner. Maybe for a jungler you can say that. For a mid laner, especially when I play games like champs like Twisted Fate, I'm like, I won this game and I had this hypothesis and it worked, but I probably could have won this game a differing way. And until I can't go back in time and relive it. So it's very difficult for me to say if this was a quote unquote perfect game. It's only perfect in the sense of execution in reference to your hypotheses, or perfect in the sense of your hypothesis with the information that you were given in this game in this moment. Maybe you can have some form of argument for that. But anyway, I'm getting a little bit too carried away there, sorry. But now let's actually look at some scenarios in reference to the benefits of sacrificing CS. So what we're going to do now is look through a series of examples from my own games, random situations where I've sacrificed CS in order to make a play elsewhere. Yes, I'm probably not going to get 10 CS per minute anymore, but a lot of the time, I don't really give a shit because I'm being more impactful and I'm doing things that are going to help me win the game itself. Now, the first one here is backing up the team. Here, I end up shoving the wave, or I attempt to shove in the wave versus an Ahri. And then I pan my camera topside and I see a skirmish breaking out. And the Ahri end up ditching the wave. Now, yes, my wave is completely screwed because I've touched it. Now it's going to just slow build into the Ahri. I'm going to lose a bunch of farm, whatever. But I had to go to this fight because if I did not go to this fight here, my Riven probably would have died to the Ahri. They would have collapsed on the Riven, and it might have been really bad. Or maybe I could have got to this fight earlier. Maybe we could have traded 2 for 2 or something. I don't know. So in this moment, I don't think I think sacrificing CS is completely worth it, and especially since Riven was my strong side that game. Sometimes you got to just accept reality that you can't get the wave in based off your champion's. Your lack of tempo or the lack of range on your champion, or no access to resources like I mentioned before. I just didn't have the access to resources right now. So I end up trying to get this wave in, but the wave doesn't crash, and then Syndra comes back and I'm like, oh shit. I can't do anything. So I had to accept reality that I can't get this wave in. I have to accept reality that's frozen. If I stay now, all that's going to happen, I'm probably either going to die, I'm going to die to a gank, or I'm going to die solo, or I'm just going to stay chunked in the lane, and then my champion has no identity because I'm low as an assassin. I'm low as Fizz. I don't have an identity if I can't skirmish. So I accept reality. Sometimes that happens. I'm not going to talk about the specific in terms of what I could have done better, just more in that situation, I had to sacrifice a CS. Or if I see an opportunity to get high impact roams, instead of staying mid and just farming creeps, so on and so forth, I'm not going to be back on the mid wave as it crashes, but I see a very favorable situation break out in the bot lane. I get a nice little kill into the Jinx and I get a great quality kill. Yes, I'm going to miss a bit of CS on my way to mid, but it is what it is. I'm willing to make that trade. So it ties in directly with my champion's identity. It ties in directly with, you know, I'm not a champion. Fizz or Kiana, a lot of these champions, they're not going to farm 10 CS per minute. Yes, I missed this CS under tower, but it is what it is. Now, this is a perfect example of what happens if I greed. In this situation, my wave is completely screwed, right? It's stuck here. It's slow building into the enemy. I know the enemy's going to be here any second, and I was thinking to myself, you know what? Maybe I can quickly get this wave out before the enemy comes. I was versing a Nocturne. Now, this is another situation. I was versing a Nocturne with ultimate. I had to just give it. I had to accept reality. I don't have access to these creeps to protect my own life. But here, because I didn't give the creeps, I tried to fix the wave by myself, I just died. Sometimes you're going to be in those sorts of situations where you're just going to have to get CS. Now, give CS. Now, before here, by the way, when I was talking about high impact roams and giving CS for a roam, this is where the game gets very complex. This is why there is no clear-cut formula. If you're playing a champion like Fizz, even if you're playing a mage, you just got to get specific. How desperate is the game state? If you got two losing sides where you really need to get one side winning, is your champion not a carry in which you need to create a secondary win condition? Do you have one heavy losing side, one heavy winning side, and your champion just sucks into their entire comp, so you need to get that player ahead? Or do you feel as though the guy in bot lane has a massive shutdown, so if you get that one shutdown, then it's worth it, even if at the sacrifice of CS? There are so many variables at play. And this is what I'm saying. You can't just look at this and say, okay, every time I can roam, I should sacrifice CS to go. No. Are they your winning side? Is it a desperate wave state? Does the enemy jungle have rift? Can they just rift mid if you leave? I don't know. This is why you must get into the details. You must get very, very specific. And then after, in the review, I would ask myself, okay, Curtis, what did I get for this roam? What did my side lane do with it? What did I lose for it? Did it have a meaningful impact on my 1v1 or did it not? I'm only ever going to know if I test it, I review it, I have the painful experience and embrace it. I embrace the fact that I have this shitty painful experience and I move on. Moving on here, creating win conditions. I knew I was in an incredibly bad spot right now versus Tristana. I had losing top, I believe I already got solo killed or something. And I knew that I needed my bot lane to be ahead because I'm slowly losing. So I went for a play bot, which allowed my Jinx to get a nice little kill onto the Alistar. Now this situation, you know, it's pretty bad. I lose 6 or 7 creeps mid, but I remember thinking to myself, I must get my Jinx ahead. And if I don't get my Jinx ahead, I'm not going to win the game anyway. So trying to create a win condition. Now, after I created this win condition, I gave more CS to facilitate the win con. I needed to help my Jinx here. He got dove. And they end up going bot, chasing down this Kai'Sa and getting a massive shutdown onto this Kai'Sa. Now, look, for me, this is a bit of a weird example because my intention anyway when giving the CS wasn't to... I thought Jinx could survive if I ultimate, but my mindset was I just wanted to facilitate the win condition. I knew that if I played slow and I didn't play towards my bot lane, I didn't really help my Jinx, we're going to lose anyway because Tristana's going to slowly beat me. My top side's losing. We really had to create this win con through bot. So hopefully what I'm trying to get across here, guys, is that you just got to be more intentional. There's no clear-cut formula. There's no smooth, you know, highway telling you, okay, do this every single time, then you're going to be all good. No. Get very specific. Get into the details. It's not sexy. It's very boring. It's very tiresome, and it can be painful. It can be very painful sometimes, except in reality that you probably should have roamed when you didn't, or you should have been more greedy when you didn't. So let's go a little bit deeper, guys. Now, back in 2017, when I was the head coach of Direwolves, we did a Korean boot camp, and my mid laner at the time, he had this rule of thumb that he told me about, and I've really held on to this for the last, 4 or 5 years, whatever it is. And it's been a rule of thumb that I even carry on within my own solo queue games every single day. And the rule of thumb goes like this. There's a specific situation in the game where both minions on both sides, so my minion and their minion, are low HP. Now, if one of us decides to go for the minion, whereas I go for the enemy instead, I ignore the minion, give the CS, and go for the enemy, I'm going to win out eventually. And the way you've got to view it is like, it's kind of like a long-term investment. If I were to ignore this minion, give this CS, and take the trade 3, 4, 5 times across the course of 2 to 3 minutes, what's going to happen? I'm going to get more control over the lane progressively, drain their resources, get more pressure, better quality vision, better quality resets. I might end up having or being able to slow build a wave and then come back to lane without even having to use my TP, where they have to use their TP. And with my TP advantage, I can make a side lane play happen. Now, the reason this player actually came up with this because he got punished for this in OS. In 2017 in OS at the time, he versed all the mid laners that he's versed. If there was a choice between a minion and the enemy, they always used to go for the minion. And he carried on this habit when he went to Korean solo queue. In Korean solo queue, he saw the opposite happen. What happened, instead of going for the low minion, the enemy would just give the minion and take the trade. And he thought to himself, I'm just getting fucked here. I'm just getting destroyed. What's going on? So what I realized is that, yes, this is a very toxic habit that a lot of players have, even to this day. And I see it within my coaching clients. And for some reason, we are compelled to always go for the CS instead of, go for that trade and take the skill shot or whatever it is. So there obviously, it gets a little bit deeper than this. This is just a rule of thumb. Sometimes, if you need to fix the wave and take that bad trade because you're going to reset anyway, it does not matter. Then obviously you're going to go for the CS. But as a rule of thumb, if you're full resources, whatever it is, you must always go for the trade. And this is essentially the situation here. Do I go for this last hit and take the trade from the enemy, or do I sacrifice the last hit and trade back and take a favorable trade? So what we're going to do now, instead of talking about it, it's very theoretical. Let's just go into an example so we can really understand the consequences of this action. So this was a game I played recently versus Mid-Beast here. And what I'm going to show you is this is usually how trades go. It's kind of like chess or like a dance. Like I move, then they move, I move, then they move. So take a look at this. When I know my minions are high enough HP where I don't need to CS them, and I know Mid-Beast here has to go for this minion, this little minion here, I can posture up aggressively and make him make a choice between me and the minion. Now with this choice, it's very easy. There is no choice for me to make. It's obvious that I would go for the trade onto the Twist of Fate because there's no CS that I have to give up. I can take the trade without necessarily missing any CS. Now, it's the other way around. My minions are low here. Now look what Mid-Beast does. He then will path up to me, and he's trying to make me make a choice between the minion or take some damage. So I posture back so I don't take any damage, and then it's a rinse repeat. I move up, I try to punish him, so on and so forth. So this dance just continues. This is what mid lane is, or trading in any lane. It's just, okay, I punish you, whoever can punish each other better, timing their ability, so on and so forth. Very, very simple, straightforward trading, all timed with the minion HP values. And so in a second, what we're actually going to see is what happens when both the minions are low. Both of our minions are low at the exact same time. Okay? So fast forwarding here, we'll see in a second. Now, in this situation, what do we see? Both of our minions are starting to get low, but they're not low enough to CS yet. So what happens, Mid-Beast throws his Q through the creeps, like this, and I know that he really wants to go for this minion here. But at the same time, look at this. My minions are getting low down here, and I know they're getting targeted by the cannon, so they're probably just going to get destroyed. And I willingly, in this moment, and then this is something I had to bring to the forefront, and this is just the rule of thumb that I've had for years and years and years, I willingly am okay with giving this 1 or 2 CS here to ensure that I'm able to go for the QW onto Mid-Beast here. Now, in a perfect world, what should actually happen is that he actually should not go for this minion, and he should trade back onto me if possible. Now, yes, if he can't trade back onto me, maybe because his range is too low, whatever, I could understand that. But generally, this is the premise at play. So look at this. He uses his gold card. Look at that. He uses his gold card, instead of walking past the minion and potentially going onto me, he just uses his gold card onto that minion, and I now get a full QW on his face. Now, yes, I actually miss one of my minions back here. I think I get one of them, but I miss one of these minions. But I'm able to take a nice little QW trade. Now, this may not look like much in isolation, but what actually happens here, if you were to continue this again and again and again, I take this trade, you get your one little CS, I don't give a shit. I go down -1, but I've just taken, what, a 6 of your HP? And now he doesn't actually have any more corrupting pots at this point because I poked him so much. Well, what happens? You're going to get lower and lower and lower in, over the course of the next minute. And then what? I get full control over the lane. I can use my wards wherever I want. I can posture as aggressively as I want. You're probably going to have to take a bad reset. Maybe go down -6 or -8 or -10 in the back end if I slow build the wave properly. Or they're generally under kill threat range, and maybe I can set up a gank or whatever I want to do. I can do whatever I want. So view it as a long-term investment. It's okay to make the short-term investment loss. Make sure take the short-term L for the long-term W. Okay, so this is the premise, and this is a concept that isn't really spoken about often, but something that I've now do subconsciously. So experiment with this and let me know how it goes, guys. Now I want to share with you 3 important mid-game CSing tips. The first one, getting camps in lull states. For example, when objectives are down, when people are resetting or dead, or when people are shoving out waves, etc. 2, when going to a side lane, call for jungler to hover so you can actually shove out the wave fully without just half-assing it and only getting one wave out. If you get your jungler to hover, you can sometimes get 2 or 3 waves out. And the third one here, clear the enemy jungle camps off of a one team fight generally before resetting. So after you ace the team or whatever, instead of just insta resetting, unless obviously objectives are up and you need to instantly reset, try and take their jungle camps on the way through. That's going to do 2 things. You're going to lower the amount of CS and farm that they have, and you're going to increase yours. And this is actually a more of a competitive thing. If you watch any high-level competitive VOD, what you'll see, or what a good coach should teach a team, is that after you kill, you ace them or you get 3 or 4 kills, you should actually take as many of their jungle camps as possible. That's actually how you translate a lead. That's actually how you win League of Legends at the highest level. You don't actually get towers and barons and shit. Yes, you can get them if possible, but if you can slowly take their jungle camps, so that you're not only getting your own jungle camps, you're getting their jungle camps. And you just get so far ahead, it doesn't even matter. It basically guarantees that you win the next team fight regardless. So let's actually take a look at a few examples here, guys. So again, a few examples from my own games here. Right now, my team is just finishing up a dragon and they're all resetting. And I don't really need, I think I was, in this moment in time, I had a little bit of time before the next objective. I got the wave out as far as I possibly could. Everyone's resetting. So I found a little bit of time during this little lull state to get an extra Krug camp. Why not? I'm in the area, I'm right next to it, everyone's resetting, there's nothing immediate that I need to do, no objectives, and same thing here. Everyone's resetting, my Malphite just reset, my Taric just reset, there's nothing really for me to do right now, I'm allowing the wave to come into me first, so in the meantime, I'm just here, chilling, clearing Krugs, getting camps in these miniature lull states. And then resetting. Now, the next one here is getting hovered. This was actually a Clash game recently where I was telling my jungler, I want to be able to shove this out fully. I want my team to hover me. And what I mean by hover, and you can even say this in solo queue, I say this quite often, or sometimes with pings, is that you just want your jungler to hover you in this area, this quadrant, while you're shoving out the side lane. Now, if my jungler wasn't here, for example, let's just say hypothetically, my jungler went topside and hovered the GP here, or reset, whatever it is, I wouldn't be able to go up here and get this next wave. I would have had to back off because I just wouldn't have the vision, I wouldn't have the protection, but because Udyr came here, set up some vision for me, I'm able to shove out this entire next wave, which is very, very important because, this adds up over time. I get +6, +6, +6 instead of only, or +12 instead of +6, which is very important. Next one is clearing enemy jungle after fight. So here again, we just ace the team and we're kind of coming off the base right now. And right now, my default response in this situation was to scan the enemy jungle. Are the Krugs up? Is the red buff off? Everything. And in this situation, I was looking for the Krugs and the red buff, but they were not up. Viego here ended up taking the Raptors. And that is the mindset you've got to have after a reset. If there's no immediate objective to go for, take all the jungle camps. And in this situation, there wasn't really any, but you can kind of see here, Kaiser's taking top camps, Viego's taking the Raptors right now. I'm looking for Krugs, but there wasn't really anything for me available. So at the highest level, you'll see really good players are very good at denying enemy jungle camps. Now, I would never set a learning objective for a player or anyone to get 10 CS per minute. Never. It must come naturally. If you want to get 10 CS per minute, it must come naturally over time. So I want to explain why. First things first. Only after a very long time of playing a specific champion and the game for a very long time, you will know when, in some situations, you got to play very greedily, and that's the best thing for that game in order for you to win. Whereas other games, you are to sacrifice CS in order to get someone else ahead and play very selflessly in order to win the game. There is no way that a player who doesn't have a ridiculous amount of champion mastery and a ridiculous amount of time playing the game will be able to come to this conclusion. Only through hypothesizing and testing will this become obvious. You can't just artificially force it because it doesn't make sense. Every action in a game, if you think about it, you know, when people talk about, skill, like skill only means shit if it actually allows you to win the game. At the end of the day, we all play or do stuff or understand concepts so we can actually just increase our chances of winning the game. Getting 10 CS per minute for the sake of looking cool, sure, go for it. But I would rather look like shit but win the game than look cool and get 10 CS per minute. I want my LP. I don't know about you. I just want my LP. Like I've outlined, getting 10 CS per minute is a skill made up of multiple skills. You cannot expect a player to get high CS without having great champion mastery, great fundamentals, and great matchup understanding. If a coach is saying to you, your CS is too low, you got low CS scores, what the fuck does that mean? Specifically, is it, do I have a problem with my champ mastery? Do I have a problem with my fundamentals? Do I have a problem with my matchup understanding? Let's just get into the details and figure out why we're missing the CS. You cannot just, it's not a skill. CSing is the culmination of many, many things. And if you strive for these high CS numbers and you set these CS goals without actually understanding the context, you will inevitably be left confused and severely hurt your own confidence. And yes, there's obviously a base level you must have, but in order to go from 7+ to 9 to 10, it has to come naturally as a result of all of these things clicking into place. Okay, interesting. I know what sort of wave state my champion likes. Interesting. I know how to bring about the wave state now. Interesting. Now I know how the junglers interact and the supports interact with me creating the wave state, blah, 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 blah. It's just a very complex thing. Now we must remember the amount of CS you want in a given game can also come down to preference. Based off of one's preferences of game pace, the amount of chaos they want to induce in a game, and just the way they interpret their own champion's identity. I've seen people play Galio in a very chaotic fashion. I've seen people play Galio in a very slow fashion. I've seen people play 10 CS per minute Echo. I've seen people play Chaos, Time War Tonic, Corrupting Bot, Ditch, and Roam Echo. Both of them are viable in a specific game if it works for you at the end of the day. There is no correct answer. Okay, there is no correct answer. It does come down to preference. Yes, there are things that you can say are objectively good. I understand that. But at the end of the day, when the push comes to shove, when you're really deciding between 8 to 9 CS per minute or deciding between styles, it's very difficult to see which one is the best. Now, when it comes to improving CS scores, guys, if you're missing CS in the laning phase, you must get specific about why you're missing CS. Now, these are a few things that might help you or areas that I would urge you to look for if you are just getting below 7 CS per minute, or you find yourself having low CS numbers, or you don't know what might be going wrong, okay? Do you have poor wave management, resulting in the inability to safely reach the CS? Are you not layering the minions so the HP is all staggered, right? You want the HP staggered so they're not all getting low at the exact same time. Are you failing to know the damage output of your auto attacks or abilities in which you just need to go to practice to or play more games with your champions? Are you taking poor trades, resulting in the loss of control over positioning in the lane? Right? If you're taking poor trades, like that Nico did, of course she's not going to have access to the full wave. She can't get great CS scores. She's taking terrible trades. Not seeing which minion is getting targeted. This is a big problem I see with lower level players. They don't know which minion is getting targeted by their minion, so they're unable to see how fast a minion is dying. If I know I have a cannon in my wave and I see the cannon attacking one minion, I already know that one's very, very likely going to die first. Or if I see like 4 casters attacking one, I know it's just going to get one shot, so I got to direct my attention towards it. Not recognizing the size of the wave in order to judge the damage output. If there's a huge wave, obviously the minions are going to get one shot, that sort of thing. And each of these are viable problems and can be dealt with on an individual basis if need be. Do not conflate the problems and say, I just miss CS all the time. What am I going to do with that? What are you going to do with that? You tell me. Remember, you can say this, but that's just the start. That's the compass. That's just the compass telling you, radar problem, metal detector, there's something here, there's a problem. Let's dig it up. Let's get specific. What is going wrong here? Now, let's actually look at the pros, guys. Let's actually, let's get very specific. This is CSing Angel, one of the best solo queue players. We have Showmaker, another amazing solo queue player, obviously, with some of their average games, okay? So what I did is pulled random over the past 2 days on their accounts and actually just figured out their averages. Angel on the left-hand side, across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 games, 7.3 average. Showmaker across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, a wide range of champions, 8.1 average. Notice how this doesn't really tell us shit, does it? What do we get from this? Whoop-de-doo, you have X amount of CS average. All right, cool, man. One game here, he gets 10, then he gets 6.5, then he gets 8.5, whatever it is, just doesn't matter. And even the best players in the world are not getting insanely high CS scores. Even Doimby, you watch these players, yes, they're just getting 7 to 8. I would say 7 to 8 is relatively average. But it doesn't even tell me anything. What does that mean? It just doesn't tell me much, does it? So please stop looking at these CS scores. Even the best players, if you look at the average, is nothing special. So what I've got here is my suggestions and a rough guideline when it comes to CS scores, okay? This is a very, very rough guideline because remember, there's a lot of things that influence this score. I've spoken about a lot of these within this video, but use this as an overarching guideline. Now, on the left-hand side here, we have slow-paced games, and then on the right-hand side, we have fast-paced games, okay? So if you are in a slow-paced game, and I would define a slow-paced game where there's, not many kills, not many things happening, not much heavy trading, everyone's playing conservatively, all that boring shit. If you're in gold to plat, or gold to low plat, I would recommend, average going for like a 7 to 8 CS per minute. If you're plat to diamond, high plat to diamond, 8 to 9 CS per minute. And if you're diamond to challenger, 9 to 10 CS per minute. This is only for a slow paced game. But for a fast paced game, if you're gold to high to low plat, 6 to 6.5, plat to diamond around 6.5 to 7, and then diamond to challenger 7 to 8. Roughly around these guidelines, okay? And again, a fast-paced game is defined by a lot of heavy trading, a lot of chaos, a lot of skirmishes, shit happening everywhere, heavy trading everywhere, just a lot of chaos overall, okay? So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this sheds a little light onto this topic. I'm pretty passionate about this one, as you can tell, because, look, a lot of the time with my coaching, I have to undo these bullshit invisible narratives. It's like they come from somewhere else and they have all this nonsense in their mind. I have to just debunk it. And it's intense sometimes. So hopefully this puts you in the right path, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. Otherwise, I'll see you for another video soon. Cheers.